Just after dark on a warm summer evening, 5 children were walking home along this road. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a pickup truck headed towards them. 3 of the children were hit. 1 was killed. The driver sped away. Investigators called on state-of-the-art science to reconstruct the crime in hopes of learning how the accident happened and the identity of the driver. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, is one of America's most popular.
Out, and that was about all I remember.
And I see this car, this big, a bunch of lights, just coming straight at us, and I just yell, "Watch out!"
By the time they saw the vehicle, it was too late. Nicole Walker and Michelle Vitello were both hit.
I went over to check on Nicole, and I seen blood coming out of her mouth and her ears, and I knew she wasn't gonna make it.
One of the kids ran to Nicole's home.
There was the knock at the door, and it was Joel. There was no color in his face, and his eyes were so bugged out of his head. He was just, you could see the terror, the fright, just saying the girls were all hit. The girls were all hit.
The children were rushed to the hospital. Michelle suffered a broken leg, 2 broken wrists, and a lacerated liver. 9-year-old Brooke Mancy suffered a fractured shoulder and facial injuries that required a dozen stitches. 6-year-old Nicole died shortly after arriving at the hospital.
Some internal surgeons came in, and the conclusion was, no, she doesn't have a chance. And I begged and pleaded even for a 1% chance, and they told me, no, there's no chance.
Nicole died of severe trauma to the head and massive internal injuries. A witness said it was a man driving a green pickup truck with a white camper top, which sped away quickly, ran this red light, and disappeared.
I was just wondering how can somebody like just hit people and just keep going without even caring like what's gonna happen to them, and just left us to die. And it's just a scary feeling. I didn't know if they were ever gonna find him or what.
Investigators were hoping that science could identify the pickup truck and the driver.
How could you hit 5 little kids and keep on going?
Suzanne Walker was grief-stricken and angry over the death of her daughter, Nicole.
How could you do that? How could anybody hit kids and keep on going? Just to know you laid them flat out in the middle of a road, and you had to know.
Detective Bruce Babcock, a member of an elite team of accident reconstructionists, was called to the scene. Just before the accident, witnesses said a green truck swerved off the road, knocking over some trash cans, then stopped in a nearby cul-de-sac. A few minutes later, the truck started up again, heading back out of the neighborhood on the same road on Southwest 33rd Avenue. As it approached the apartment building, it veered off the road into the puddle, hitting 3 of the 5 children, killing 6-year-old Nicole Walker. Witnesses said the truck picked up speed after fleeing the accident. Bruce Babcock took detailed measurements of the accident scene and photographs.
When we got to the scene, the grill piece had been found in the puddle by a citizen who later gave it to one of the initially responding deputies. There was also a piece of clothing that from Nicole that we found.
Beating at us. All I can remember is a bright light, just bright lights coming straight at us.
I was so confused about the whole thing. Just not even remember getting hit or nothing. It's just a weird thing.
Investigators faced 2 difficult tasks. First, trying to prove that this was the truck involved in the accident, and second, to figure out who was driving the truck.
The problem for us was developing the evidence that was going to be needed to show who, in fact, was the driver of this truck, who veered off that roadway and hit Nicole Ray Walker that night and veered back on and didn't stop. That was going to be the challenge.
It was now 3 weeks after the hit-and-run death of Nicole Rae Walker, and police had the truck they believed was involved in the accident. But there were problems with making a definitive match. If this was the truck in the accident, it had been altered some time after the accident with different tires, repairs to the front grille, and the truck did not have the white camper top witnesses clearly recalled seeing. There were no fingerprints inside the compartment of the truck, which was extremely unusual. It appeared that the inside compartment had been wiped clean. District Attorney Ken Padowitz kept a picture of Nicole Walker on his desk, a sign of his determination to find out what exactly happened on the night of the accident.
Nicole suffered extensive injuries. When the truck slammed into her body, her head was whipped back in a whip-like fashion into the lip of the hood of the truck. And then as the truck veered back onto the roadway, her body again was slammed into the pavement. So she had extensive injuries, extensive internal injuries, which resulted in her death.
So he turned to a new state-of-the-art scientific tool, forensic animation, which can create a virtual rendering of an accident.
The best way to understand the concept of forensic animation or reconstruction would be to understand that what we're trying to do is visualize the opinions of other experts.
All of the information gathered at the crash site by accident reconstructionist Bruce Babcock was taken into account. The horizontal and vertical measurements of 2,000 feet of roadway, the eyewitness accounts, the weather conditions, and the injuries sustained by the victims. The mechanical specifications of the 1980 Chevrolet Silverado were also programmed into the computer. They also calculated the approximate tire pressure and the height and weight of their suspect, Ken Pierce, who was 5'11" tall and 210 pounds. All would affect the height of the truck as it traveled down the street before striking the children. The speed was uncertain, so they estimated the truck was traveling 30 miles per hour, the posted speed limit on that road. Michelle Botello was carrying 6-year-old Nicole Walker on her right hip at the time of impact. When the animators programmed this information, they made a startling discovery. The front grille of Kenneth Pierce's truck would have struck Nicole Walker in the back at the exact same place and at the same 22-degree angle reported by the forensic pathologist at Nicole's autopsy.
We then took an angle of Nicole's spine to the vertical, the height of Nicole from the roadway or the ground, and suddenly it was at that point we discovered that we could match these bruising marks and contusions to actual elements on the front of the truck. A real revelation to us, and certainly something that could become very crucial in the case.
When the animation was complete, it consisted of 3 different views. An overhead perspective, providing a bird's eye view of what happened. Another from inside the vehicle, which would have been the view of the alleged driver, Kenneth Pierce. From this vantage point, you can see that Nicole's head would have hit the front hood of the truck, causing her fatal head injury. The third view, a so-called chase view, was from behind the truck. For further proof, investigators turned to the paint chip found on Nicole's shirt at the time of the accident. The paint chip was blue, but there were 5 other layers of paint underneath. Forensic chemist Bruce Ayala ground the paint sample in a pestle, then analyzed it using infrared spectroscopy, which uses infrared light to identify the chemical makeup. The results were charted onto a computer graph.
There were 6 different layers of paint. There was blue metallic present, blue non-metallic, gray body filler, then there was a blue metallic factory paint, a white factory primer, and a black factory primer. Subsequently, when we examined the suspect's vehicle, we found that all 6 of those layers were present on his vehicle.
And finally, the plastic particles found at the crime scene were the same in color and materials as the broken turn signal on Pierce's truck. Although there were no fingerprints found in the compartment of the truck, Kenneth Pierce's partial thumbprint was found on a can on the floor of the vehicle. 52-year-old Kenneth Pierce was arrested and charged with vehicular homicide in the death of Nicole Walker.
Suspended, revoked, or canceled license.
I don't want to lock.
The forensic animation showed clearly that the driver would have known he had hit the children at the time of the accident. Before the trial, Ken Pierce's neighbor, Terry Jones, came forward and told police that Pierce admitted driving the truck on the night of the accident.
Mr. Jones told us that Ken Pierce had contacted him and requested that he come over and help fix the damage to the front of the vehicle. He also received a camper top that had been taken off the vehicle. The camper top was worth about $500, and Mr. Pierce gave it to him for the work that he did on the car.
Kenneth Pierce had a number of prior arrests and convictions.
It should be somewhat significant to find out that in addition to 20 arrests and convictions for felonies and misdemeanors in Mr. Pierce's life, he had 2 prior hit-and-run convictions.
At the trial, prosecutors wanted to introduce the forensic animation to show the jury their version of what happened on the night of the accident. Defense lawyers claimed that the animation was nothing more than speculation and would prejudice the jury. Prosecutors said the animation was a factual account of the accident. The judge ruled that the forensic animation was admissible.
That justice can still be had in the criminal justice system. And the day that I don't feel that way anymore is the day that I'm going to take down her picture.